Hello and welcome everyone to day two of the Brand Summit. This will be a very fun day, we promise, because we got some great speakers talking about subjects that they truly believe from the heart. We will kick off today with Oliver Merlin. Oliver is a multi-talented person who is a business director and a successful painter at the same time. He's the executive director of Latitude 38. Hi, Oli.
Hello.
And you might want to look up where Latitude 38 passes from. I'll give you a hint. It's a very cool Mediterranean island. Oli has led culture and change at many organizations throughout his career, including one that I was involved in. So he's here to tell us all about it. So, Oliver, how are you doing?
Very well, very well. Thank you, Baris. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you.
It's
I'm on
fantastic.
the.
It's fantastic to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
So, without taking too much of your time, the stage is yours. So, and
Okay,
I'll ask some questions in the end.
great. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And by way of just continuing that very nice introduction, I am in that very nice Mediterranean island, otherwise known as Ibiza. So I'm joining you from a sunny, warm place, which is where I'm at my happiest. As Barish just said, I'm a management consultant by trade and did my training at Accenture. And then the last 10 years or so, I've been working in B2B media, several of which were happily spent with Barish. So I'm going to tackle a subject today, which is a very famous and important topic that has become a bit of a cliche, but it's a fun topic to deal with. So we could actually talk about it for several hours, and in fact, I've seen courses on this topic go on for a week. So we're going to do a whistle stop tour in our 15 minutes that we have, in order to just give you maybe 2 or 3 takeaways where you can try to avoid maybe culture eating your strategy for breakfast and your strategy being successful and taking you where you want to go. So without further ado, if we can go into the slides, please. So, and in fact, the first one as well, please, Ozan. So, yep, next one. That's it. So I have taken this as not a question, right? So does culture eat strategy for breakfast? Of course it does. Okay. And it's worth us examining maybe for a minute or so where this quote came from, and how it sort of came about. And then we will go on to what you can do about it and how you can do some of these things. So can we go to the next slide, please? The next picture. That's it. So this is a picture of a gentleman called Peter Drucker. I'm sure that many of you know this name. If you don't know the face, this is his face. It's a quote that's become attributable to Peter, who is a management guru, done lots and lots of very inspirational management books. If you haven't read any, start with The Effective Executive, a very good book. And this quote is attributed to Peter, but it's been around for a while. You've got to remember that Peter Drucker died in 2005, at which point he was 95. So it's kind of debatable as to whether this quote was actually said by Peter Drucker, but it's certainly, he was doing a lot of work with Ford at the time, and the Ford CEO, Mark Fields, at the time attributed this to Peter. What it essentially means is that if you set out a strategy that is not compatible with your culture, the culture being the day-to-day things that people have on their mind, that their to-do list, the way that the company works, the natural norms of the company will eat your strategy for breakfast, and your strategy will just go out the window, will not function, you will not go to where you want to go. And it came about through learnings that came from failed M&A work, restructuring, corporate restructuring work that happened in the 80s and 90s, where the strategy that was set out for some reason failed and people couldn't work out why. So that's where it comes from. A little bit of history. Interesting to know. Right, let's move on to the slides and get into some practical stuff, please. Next slide, Ozan. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So why does this phenomenon happen? Why does strategy get sidelined like that? And how do you stop that happening? So let's deal with the strategy itself. Okay. First of all, when you're outlining your strategy and be it a change in your strategy, be it a completely new strategy for your company, make that strategy amazing. Let's deal with the strategy itself, right? Please don't say you want to be the best agency in the world or you want to be a world-class agency. Everybody says that. Your strategy must blow their socks off. It must be original. It must be ambitious. It must excite the pants off the people who are listening to it. And all of those things at the same time whilst being attainable. So it can't be so far and so ambitious that your employees or your people are depressed because they're never going to make it. It has to actually be attainable. So try to be precise and concise and make it relevant to yourself. So instead of saying, I want to be a world-class agency, why not be, I want to be the most loved or the most sought after agency in digital marketing in the UK or France or where it might be, or I want to hit this target in terms of market share or customers or double my revenues. Be as concise and precise as you want, but also try to be original and ambitious. Don't take something off the shelf. A lot of strategies simply fail because they are not exciting and original enough for people. Okay, so that's point one. I think that's mostly it's very self-explanatory, but try to come up with something that truly wows people. And if you're not excited by it, put it in the bin and start again and try something else. Next slide, please, Ozan. Thank you. This is very important. So number two. So the main reason why new strategies or a new strategic direction, the main reasons why those are not successful is that you have not tied it to your culture. And there are two ways that you can really try to combat that. One, and these are not one is more important than the other, or they're mutually exclusive, but you must do both. At least you must do these two things. Bring it to life. You must find elements in your strategy. Okay, strategies can sometimes feel a little bit hazy to people, high level. Oh, it was designed by the management team. I don't know what it means to me. You must find ways to bring it to life so that people can feel it in their own everyday jobs. So if you're working in one country, for example, and you've decided you're going to expand into a new territory, the day after you set that territory, take your entire company to that new territory. Give people opportunities to go and work in that. Take a few people and put them into that company. Get people from that company to come over to your organization and talk to you and talk to you about what this new territory might be like. You have to find ways to bring this to life for people. If you have decided to go into a new product, train people on that new product. If it's a new type of digital branding or a new technology, make sure everybody gets trained in that technology. Maybe everybody is immersed in it. Hugely, hugely important. Bring it to life, make it really mean something to people. Otherwise, it will just be a management vision. Okay. The next element is move fast. Time really is of the essence. We all must have been in organizations where the CEO stands up and talks about his plan for 18 months, 2 years. People switch off. People, frankly, haven't got that level of visibility that far in advance. They're dealing with things, they've got a to-do list of things they need to do tomorrow and the day after and the following week, and maybe they can see as much as a month or 3 months into the future. You have to make your strategy visible to people very, very quickly. So if you're going into a new market, as I said, take everybody from your organization to that new market, not in 6 weeks' time, not next year, tomorrow. Okay. So to gain this momentum and this credibility, you have to show the fruits of the new strategy very, very quickly. Yeah. So if you're going into a new market, you have to have that office ready to go. You have to have your country manager in place. You have to have people from your organization going to that country manager the day after. And break things down for people. Don't talk about something that's going to happen in 2 years, something that's going to happen in 18 months' time. Tell them what they're going to see differently after their next paycheck in a month's time. Okay. So bring it to life and move fast. Two things that for a lot of people are not normally associated with strategy, right? Strategy is something normally quite ethereal and that sets out a plan for quite a long period of time. Absolutely right, but bring it to life and move fast. Next slide, Ozan, please. Last one, in fact. So there's a third aspect. So you must live this. As the leaders of your organizations, going back to the first point, if you're not excited by your new strategy, and if you don't talk about it and live it and genuinely feel it every day, people will pretty soon work out if you really aren't genuine about it. So you must really believe in it and act it every single day. People will not follow. And why should they, frankly? Okay, so you are the leaders of your organization. You're set out your new strategy. You want to do something differently. You absolutely 100% to act with integrity must live out that strategy and do everything that embodies that new strategy every single day. You're always on show, and you must do everything that points in the same direction as strategy. If you're kind of caught off guard, having a conversation by the water machine or over lunch, saying, "Oh, I'm not really sure about that, but I'll continue to talk about it." Dead. you might as well not bother with your strategy, okay? Because these are the cultural things that stop your strategy working and make it be a piece of uh, a document that just sits on a shelf and gets eaten up, as they say, as the famous quote says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So um, those are the three things that you must absolutely do. You must not do anything that goes counter your strategy. You must live it. So I hope those three things are very, very important. You to recap, your strategy must absolutely blow their socks off. There must be something original, fantastic, you genuinely are excited about yourself, but that is also attainable for people. You have to bring it to life by bringing real elements of the strategy. Pick one or two or three and try to think about things, ways that you can bring them into people's real and everyday work, and do that very, very quickly. Don't think that strategy is something you can come back to every 6 weeks or so. You have to talk about it every day, and you have to show the real fruits of that strategy very, very quickly, within days, okay, not weeks. And lastly but not least, you have to live it. Okay, you can't rely on other people to do it for you. If you're setting out a strategy, it's yours, and you have to take the whole organization with you. Okay, I think that is all I'm going to say on that very quick whistle-stop tour of why does strategy eat culture for breakfast, because I think we know that the answer is yes. Barish, I think you want to
Yeah,
talk
I
about
have a few
these
questions.
points.
Well, thank you for that. First of all, it was very concise and very clear. And I
No worries.
think what this challenges is challenges our understanding of what the strategy really is, rather than what culture. We get culture, we know what it really is, but I think our understanding of the of a strategy must be perhaps renewed, because just like you said, a strategy is conceived, or you expect a strategy to be something that is very long term, that's going to change, steer the tanker slowly, and so it's not your everyday. You shouldn't be bothered by it. But you're saying otherwise. Can you just dwell on that a little more, please?
Of course, of course. I think that perhaps in the days, I mean, I talked earlier about this quote coming from Ford when we talk about, large transformation programs or strategy programs that, you go away and sit in a room with a strategy consultant for 6 months and you plan, and then you decide you eventually might tell your organization about it. This is sort of, almost last century thinking, right? This is thinking that where, changes in life cycles and technological changes and other barriers and competitive issues would come up maybe every 10 to 15 years, right? Things have changed, okay? And you simply cannot afford to look at your business activities in such a lengthy cycle. And people's working activities have changed, right? So, people probably don't stay with you for 10 years anymore. And frankly, if you set out a new strategy and people can't see it working within a matter of days, weeks, and months, you're going to lose them, and people will only stay with you for a year or two. So for me, the external forces on a business that are both technology-wise, regulatory-wise, and competitive-wise have shaped business to such an extent where strategy has become the kind of looking at strategy has almost become a constant process, right? It's not something that you can do 3 years. Oh, then we'll have another 5-year plan, and then we'll have another 5-year plan. Forget it. You're dead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so with that new thinking of an adaptive strategy, let's say,
Yeah.
I want to touch on another point about culture, because you have done cultural change as well, and I think organizations find changing their strategy easier than changing their culture. What do you say about that?
Yeah. That
And that's why strategy gets eaten for breakfast, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. The culture, culture is a very funny thing. You can it's a very nice exercise, right? To sit in a room and use your brain and intellectualize about, okay, yes, I want to go and be, such and such in such and such different market. Great, and then you can stop. But making it happen is the hard part, right?
Mhm.
Making it happen. How do you make that happen? Culture is something that exists. It's some bits of it are almost intangible. It's the behaviors, it's body language, it's people's internal thinking that leads them to behave in a certain way. How do you affect those things? Funnily enough, in taking a credible strategy, and then that last point that I made about living it every day, people start to slowly modify their behaviors. And if they see a leader doing one thing repetitively every day and it's the right way and it's starting to show results, they will then turn. But you can't go into lunch hall, and guys, right, guys, we're changing our culture today. Okay.
This is our new culture.
Yeah.
Take it.
Well, okay. Okay. Because you look around, you can't see the culture, right?
Yeah.
You can see the strategy, you can put it on your walls and
Mhm.
slogans and all these things. Culture you quite often can't see.
And in the context of agency growth events, and you did touch about these agencies out there, they often work with companies, clients that they might not have the right cultural fit with. So, how important do you think it is to work with clients that you have culture fit with?
Listen, I think it's obviously certainly easier, right? But in my career, my background, and we've worked together a little bit. It's actually sometimes more rewarding to work with a client where there's a different cultural fit. So, some places you work and the desire for change is there, and the company
Mhm.
wants to go in a certain direction. And actually, it's fantastic, and you work through. But actually, sometimes it's even more rewarding to see somewhere change through recommendations that you've made as an agency, as a consultant, be it whatever it might be, as long as you do it in the right way. And then it's in effect it's harder, right?
Mhm.
Because your ideas are not necessarily met with a kind of welcome and open arms. But in a certain sense, I think it's sometimes more rewarding. And my only kind of a guidance and advice on that is, you've always got to do the right thing in what you believe in. As long as you can kind of wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, knowing,
Mhm.
trusting the advice that you've given, I think you're fine.
I understand. And last question: in the change programs or transformation programs that
Mhm.
I know you have spent all your career in, could you give us a few tips around what absolutely to avoid? Because I know from experience it is not very easy for everyone to accept the change, to be part of it, then become agents of it.
Yeah.
But in your career, what have you seen as like top three tips on what are the most important things to get right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a classic, but communication, right?
Mm,
So you have a lot of people who are, effectively scared of communicating, and I don't think you should ever be scared of communicating. I think that people, when you're embarking on a change or transformation program, people sometimes wait until there's a lot of stuff to say.
mm,
My strong recommendation is to start communicating with people. People will
mhm,
appreciate the honesty, the openness. Even if there's not necessarily all of the answers answered, get people with you. Bring people onto the program and bring them onto the change. If you can give people meaningful roles to do on the change, then they will feel more like they're being part of the change rather than change being done to them. So that's two:
mhm,
communication and involve people. The last one, I think this is hugely, hugely, hugely important. It links to that last point I made about living it. Do not, absolutely do not overpromise. Okay, so don't
mhm,
say, yeah, we're going to be the world class organization in this, that, and the other, because what you really must do is to build something properly from the ground up with people. And I think overpromising and then failing to hit deadlines which are either unrealistic or you said them at the beginning without having the
mhm,
deadline. I think nothing kills your credibility more than missing a deadline or not
mhm,
hitting a promise. We're going to do this and that or no for everybody. You don't do it, your credibility for the next thing you want to do is zero.
I
So
understand.
communication, involving people, giving them good roles in the change, and
Hitting
promise,
the deadlines,
hitting the
hitting the
deadlines,
deadlines.
only communicating, doing things that you want to that you're going to achieve.
Fantastic,
So
Oliver. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a
it's an
pleasure,
absolute pleasure. Thank you so
and
much.
hopefully in season two we'll have you again.
Great, I'd love that. Thank you so much, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you. So with that, we go to our first networking break of the day. The quickfire networking should be live now, and we will be back half past with Tim Jones of Venture 3. Looking forward to seeing you then.